Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Serge.
And my name is James.
And you know the story, James. One for sorrow, two for joy. This is definitely one magpie today because it never happened, Simon.
We're in the apocalypse in more ways than one.
James, introduce our guest properly. Let's do it.
Please allow me to introduce Sai at FPL_footballer, our Newcastle United correspondent. Sai, I feel like you could probably do this podcast by yourself. Should we just sit back and let you go? Off you go, mate.
I've got a few talking points. To be honest, I mean, most of them are FPL related, but I'm sure you want to talk about the non-takeover.
I think you should start there, yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many people on here actually follow me on Twitter, but I did have a few rants and a few conspiracy theories that I popped
sorry,
off.
It's Planet FPL. You're allowed to swear, mate. Don't worry.
Yeah, well, I was fucking livid, to be honest. I think the last time we spoke, it was a couple of weeks into the process, and everyone was quietly confident. I think it was going to happen. The pieces seem to be there. I mean, bear in mind, we've been through this situation every off-season for the last 5 years, but this one just seems more concrete. You had a couple of recurring characters that appeared before, like Amanda Staveley and a few of the others. The Reuben brothers have been linked to various other clubs, and obviously they've kind of got buckets of money. And then obviously the Saudi Arabians aren't short of a few bob or two. And I think I don't know. There's arguments on both sides as to why it didn't happen. My personal opinion is that the Premier League didn't need it to happen. They don't need another club with foreign money coming in, upsetting the apple cart. They don't need another big top four club to get into the Champions League. There's already 4 established. There were rumours about other Premier League clubs having a say on this potential takeover. Obviously, you don't know whether that's true or not, but it wouldn't have benefited them in any way to have another round of investment come in and boost up one of the kind of standardly fun Premier League clubs. So I'm just massively disappointed. It's going to be another dull, drudgy season of Newcastle football. It's been bleeding eye stuff for the last couple of years, and I can't really see that changing this season. So I just feel bad for the fans. I feel bad for the staff members at the club, because I've worked with Newcastle before, so I know quite a lot of them on the marketing and the business ops side, and it was just all kind of there ready to have to take off and be back where a lot of us feel like we belong, but wasn't to be. I don't know if it's going to happen again, but definitely not, I don't think, during this season at least.
One of the things that we thought might have played a part, and I think played a big part, would have been the football TV rights with piracy and being, is it in the Middle East, in Qatar or what have you, that the Premier League were worried about losing that revenue should Saudi Arabia be involved. And we know with COVID and what have you, like, money is tight for a lot of people right now. Even Sky Sports Premier League might be cutting budgets in certain areas. So they were scared of losing that money should they allow the takeover.
Yeah, but I think I'm right in saying that it's the only region in the world where they've sold the TV rights to one country or one exclusive provider across the entire continent, essentially, which is weird in itself. And I think that kind of plays to a lot of the different Arab states and how they're competing against each other to become this kind of sports hub. It doesn't make sense to me, that deal was constructed that way in the first place. And maybe you could look at the Saudi Arabians and say, well, why weren't they at the table when that deal was available in the first place? I think at the end of the day, like I said originally, the Premier League didn't need this deal to go through to benefit the Premier League, and I think there is a lot of reasons why they're potentially quite happy that the Saudi Arabian investment fund weren't able potentially to come up with the answers to their questions, which is their line anyway, that they've given local Newcastle MPs, that they asked for clarification on certain individuals and what their role would be, and they weren't able to provide that. And obviously on the other side of the argument, they've said the complete opposite. They've said they complied with everything that was required and that the deal just stalled. So
it was the silence, I think, from James's point of view, my point of view, that was frustrating is the Premier League just shut up and didn't release any statement or give us any kind of clarity on what was going on, which felt very unfair for the fans and everybody that was involved with it.
Yeah, massively. Like I should be looking at through my Twitter timeline now and seeing loads of Messi and Newcastle shirt pictures.
Oh my God!
I haven't even seen.
Messi still thinks the takeover's happening.
But that's the thing. I haven't even seen any Newcastle fans take the piss about it because it's just
You wouldn't, mate. No.
It's not even. Yeah, my mate sent me one that's a Nottingham Forest fan, and like he had Messi in a Forest shirt, and I was like, he said genuinely, I haven't seen any Newcastle stuff on this. It's like, well, it's beyond a joke now. The idea of like us and signing Mbappe and all of that stuff. It's just.
Have you been on social media today? And it's worth saying, like many of these podcasts, they are being pre-recorded a few days in advance of release. At the time we're recording, have you been on social media today?
No, I haven't seen anything Newcastle related.
Well, I have, and it's not good news. So there was a report emerging from the Slovakia manager that Dubravka is out for around about 6 weeks.
Oh, I did see that. Yeah, I did that. Yeah. Yeah, I saw that.
And
so
there's another report. There's another report emerging that Dwight Gale might even be out for the rest of this year. He's having a scan on a knee injury.
Wow. All right. Well, my little 2 updates for you are going to be Dubravka's going to miss the start of the season with a heel injury. I saw that on the
fantastic.
So that as always, I'm getting my information from the Newcastle website where it's all very sort of PR'd, polished. So that's great. Well, at least we've got a 5 million backup goalkeeper that we can play in Darlow. So
I mean, that's an astonishing price. It's like, did they know this was going to happen? Because Cole Darlow at 4.5 million, I think actually, oddly, with Dubravka's injury, for those looking to wildcard early, would have possibly even become of interest. You're not paying 5 million for him, are you, sir?
He didn't play a minute last season.
He's going to now as it stands, isn't
well,
it?
yeah, oddly, yeah. So again, this is, the Premier League has put a spell, the voodoo on us, I think, trying to get us to pay 5 million for Carl Darlow. It's never going to happen. There's that. And then the Dwight Gale thing, I watched some of the highlights. It looked like he picked up a knock. That's what Steve Bruce said anyway. Really out for the next 3 months?
It's only reported. It's not official, mate, but that's at the time of recording. I think it's probably worth saying in case that is true by this time next week.
Well, I've seen a few people talk about him being an option at 6 million. And to be honest, like my opinion was he needed as good a preseason he could get out of this to really be an option. And he's just not ever in a Newcastle shirt been able to string together those performances and just stay fit, really, apart from the championship season where he was our number 9, literally. But on the plus side, I mean, I've got a few comments to make about the FPL pricing if you guys want to hear it.
No, that's not what we're here for, mate. Go on,
Go on, tell us.
I mean, my first point was about Carl Darlow being 5 fucking million, which is just ludicrous. Like, I can understand Dubravka with the amount of saves he made and stuff being 5 million, but like, where else? You can only think they're looking at the Chelsea situation where I think both their keepers are 5 million. But that was because Kepa's shit and he got dropped a bunch of times. I don't know.
Caballero's no better.
Yeah, but I don't know any other club where it's come up with that pricing for. It's ridiculous. So you look through the squad and how many players consistently, and I've said this year after year, FPL prices Newcastle like a mid to upper Premier League team in terms of the price structure of the players. There's just nothing to back it up. So you go to the defence, you've got 2 5 million defenders. All right, Fernandes, who actually scored in our pre-season games at 5 million. You look at the amount of goals he scored, it was 2, same as a couple of other defenders, but he played a lot. And based on player prices around him, 5 million spare. But Shah, like, why are they pricing him at 5 million? He barely played last season. Again, that was one I was looking at as a potential option, but he's not really improved his, I think, preferred 11. So moving on, you've got a bunch of other 4.5 million players. Shah, by the way, I looked into this, priced at 5 million. There were 17 players at 4.5 million that scored more FPL points than him last season.
Nice.
So that kind of rules that one out.
And Jamal Lascelles was one of them.
Big, yeah. Big tasty,
tasty,
I think. Yeah. Decent option. I think the only problem is you look back at the last season under Bruce, and we conceded 10 more goals than we did the season before. We also didn't score. I think we scored 3 less. So that goal difference swing, I think, is a bit concerning. And I don't know right now if Bruce is going to go back to playing a defensive 3 or 5 at the back, or whether he's going to stick to this more adventurous team and setup that he had after the restart. My gut feeling is it will be kind of back to basics until we get a certain amount of points on the board.
Interestingly, I agree in terms of what we saw during the restart period of defensively, not what we've come to expect if we think back what we kind of learned under Benitez and even the start of last season where you were quite diligent defensively. The side opened up, obviously changed system. You kind of played mainly a back 4 during the restart period, but offensively much better. Talk to me about the main man, because right now, mate, he's in my draft.
He's in my draft as well. I'll get to him. I've got a few more little points. I wanted to run through.
I knew we were going to sit back on this one.
We're building up to the big event that's coming up.
Yeah. So just a few more comments on the old FPL pricing. So we've got no 4.5 million midfielder either. And bearing in mind, I'm a Newcastle fan, and I think we're going to have a pretty average to poor season again, based on the current squad and what we've got, apart from 1 or 2 potential stars that break out. So I just think it's mad that you look at some of the players, like the 2 guys, Hendricks and Matty Longstaff, that got released today, both 5 million. Hendricks scored 2 goals every season he's played in FPL, consistently. He might get a few more minutes this season, but he's
literally 2 every season.
Yeah, consistent. So if you want a 4.5 million guy, and you want to play him for 38 games, knowing he's going to score twice, he's your man. Well, he's not even 4.5, he's 5. Actually, I mean, to be fair, there are actually 4 other clubs that don't have a 4.5 million midfielder this season. I don't know if you can guess which clubs you think those are.
One might be mine.
Well, you would be the 5th. Skip is out on loan, but he's only 4.5.
Yeah.
The other one's West Ham, because they've got about 20 million midfielders, and they're all kind of there or thereabouts. Burnley.
Okay.
City have got one.
Burnley don't have a 4.5 million midfielder. I love it.
Nope. And who else have I got in here? Sheffield United. They've only got about 6 midfielders in the entire game listed.
And they're all 5 or 5.5, basically, I guess.
Yeah. So if you're looking at Newcastle midfield, it is going to come down to, I think, a couple of options. You've got obviously Richie at 5, which I've heard a few people talking about. But I think he will go back to being a reverse out of position player this season. I think he'll play, if we go back to back 3/5, he'll play left wing back for sure.
What makes you think you go back to that?
Well, lack of goals for one. I think, well, you look at the team setup, and it's whether Bruce has faith that we're going to score enough goals to stick with that system. I think we conceded too many. I just think he's going to revert back to that. It might, it really comes down to, I think, the first couple of games. To be honest, if you'd have asked me this, if we'd have had this chat in a week's time, we'd have had 3 more pre-season games under our belt, and I might be able to have a clearer picture of whether we were going to play 4 at the back or not. It's just my gut feeling that, he came out early last season. We played Norwich with the back 4 and got spanked.
Yeah.
I just got a feeling that, he'll be looking to get some points on the board. And you look at the games that we played last season. So interestingly, our first 5 games, if you look at the corresponding fixtures last year, we didn't lose any of them. So we beat West Ham, if you remember that, Suj, 3-2 at your gaff.
I do. So that was one of the games.
Don't worry, it's coming for me in game week 3 as well, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, so we won that 3-2. That was actually one of our best performances of the season. We did score 3 ludicrously early goals and then kind of almost threw it away, but still counts, 3-2. Then we had a couple of 0-0 draws. So we had Brighton was 0-0 at home. Burnley was 0-0 at home. 2 of the worst. Well, at least the Burnley game was the worst game of football I think I watched all last season. Brighton, to be fair to them, actually massively outplayed us in that one.
Did, yeah.
Beat Spurs. Do you remember that, James?
I'll tell you what, I got a fucking tan that day. It was hot.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was really
hot.
hot.
From that blistering Joel Linton strike?
I mean, yeah, how bad is it? Not only are you losing 1-0 at home to them, but
Joe
Joe
Linton
Linton
scores.
as well. Blind,
Yeah,
brilliant.
amazing.
Yeah.
And then fifth up, so we've got West Ham away, Brighton at home, Spurs away, Burnley at home, and then Man United at home, which we won 1-0. Which Matty Longstaff, your £5 million midfielder.
So 13 points from the first 5 then, Si, yeah?
Yeah. And you look at the only difference, really, from our point of view, obviously not looking at the opponents and the form and various other factors, was Allan Saint-Maximin only started 2 of those games. Well, he started 3, and he got injured in one of them. So, from my point
got injured against us, yeah.
Yeah. I've got him in my team, and I'm looking at the fact that consistency-wise, you could predict Newcastle results for the last couple of seasons pretty much down to each game and how it was going to go. You look at how we performed against those teams last year, and I think one of the big factors and differences this season is the form of Saint-Maximin and how he finished last season and how I think he can start this season.
You're doing yourself a disservice by naming the first 5 fixtures here, mate, because I was going to pull up your first 14. Because, I mean, from Boxing Day, you've got City and Liverpool consecutively in 15 and 16. But before that, if you go even to game week 6, you've got Wolves away. I think you've drawn that fixture the last 2 years. Game week 7, Everton at home, you did lose last year. Game week 8, you won at Southampton. Game week 9, you won at Chelsea. And then following that is 3 attractive fixtures: Palace, Villa, West Brom, Leeds, Fulham.
Yeah.
It's actually a really good sustained start for you, mate.
Yeah, I agree. And I think also you look at the potential for upside, which a lot of people talk about in FPL. Saint-Maximin scored 3 goals, got 5 assists last year, ended up on something like 95 points. I mean, I think this season, if he stays fit and he gets the minutes, he could have a potential 10-goal, 8-assist season, or 8-goal, 10 assists, that kind of level, which is around 150 points, I think, which is what Grealish got. But he obviously played every minute of every game, which Saint-Maximin's probably not, but potential's there.
When you played us, Si, in 35, I think it was, I was so impressed with him. He was the best player on the pitch by miles. I realised then the fear that he was giving me. I have to talk about this. There's an opposition player giving me fear. This guy was making me shit myself, mate. He is a top talent. He just needs a little bit of composure at the end. But the guy was running the game. It wasn't a case of he was in Traore positions, holding it on the touchline and just blistering people. He was getting involved centrally, and he was running the football match from an offensive attacking midfield position. And I thought, wow, do you know what? This guy, I feel like he's the player who this year, who we might laugh at his price in hindsight. Statistically, even if you compare him to, say, Richie, I mean, Richie got more FPL points in the restart period than Saint-Maximin, but you have to remember, obviously, Richie was classified as a defender and he's got a couple of clean sheets in there. But otherwise, there's actually not a lot between the two. And obviously, Richie is 0.5 million cheaper. So I think that's where people have got drawn to Richie a little bit.
Yeah.
This guy is one of them. It's on the eye test for me. He is capable of winning a game against almost anybody for them. Do you know, Sid, I've got a question for you. Do you know, if I said to you all 20 teams in the Premier League during the restart period, if I said Newcastle, big chances created, where would you rank them between 1st and 20th?
Quite high up there. What was who was the game that you spanked 4-0? Was it Bournemouth that you completely battered?
4-1. They won at Bournemouth.
4-1. Yeah, Bournemouth scored a late goal, didn't they, in that one? They were terrorising Bournemouth that game. Saint-Maximin, Almiron, and stuff were really creating. They could have had so many more in that game. So I reckon it's going to be high. Where were they in big chances created? Let's go top 3.
5th.
Okay.
Only the top 4 above them, and it's worth obviously saying did play Liverpool and Manchester City during that restart period as well. 15 big chances created is only bettered by the top 4 in the Premier League. Interestingly for you, Sid, West Ham was 6th. I've got about
Norwich, mate.
I've got about 13 teams in front of me, and I can't see Spurs, by the way, on my list. But the point is, I think if people are stuck in this mindset with Newcastle, it's interesting you say, Si, you think the system might change. I think there's more goals in this team than we're giving it credit. And I think if someone's going to break out, particularly looking at, say, Gale being out now, possibly, we don't know. But if it means the likes of Carroll or Joe Linton are back through the middle, it's going to be bringing in Saint-Maximin and Almiron into the game even more. And I'm going to be surprised at this stage if I don't start with Saint-Maximin at 5.5, I think. I think I'm going to
Yeah.
chance him. And it's not based on statistical, it's based on my eyes.
I think as well, it depends on how you're looking at what your strategy is for the start of the season. I think I haven't formalised my team, but I'm looking at, playing around with those premium price slots in midfield. And what you don't want is your fourth, fifth midfielder to be someone that you're swapping in and out. So as long as he stays fit, then did you own him last season at all? Like, he is amazing when you've got him in your FPL team. Just watch.
Thanks, Si. No,
It's
I didn't.
fun.
Yeah, it's so fun because he's got no fear, and that's the thing I love about him. No fear
Even the
whatsoever.
games against us, I could concur on what James is saying. The fear of when he gets the ball and runs at you, he is a very, very dangerous and exciting player to watch.
I'd be interested to know if teams start scheming for him a bit though.
There is that risk. There is that risk. Where like with Zaha and Palace, where he just gets targeted.
Even that Bournemouth game, I think it was the Bournemouth game which I watched, where he was getting kicked about a bit, and then I was trying to figure out whether he was rolling around a lot or he was being fouled quite a bit. But I reckon you're gonna, and it's not. Sometimes it's just so tricky, right? If he's got quick feet and he's quick, sometimes it looks like he's getting kicked about, but he's just better than the defenders and forces the foul.
I think the thing he's got over Zaha as well is, particularly in that Spurs game where he was picking the ball up, was quite deep. And he loves to run from the halfway line. I think he almost prefers that kind of, right, I'm going to take it from such a deep position, skin all the kind of those holding midfield players, and then he doesn't play on the defenders where you're likely to get in a kind of 2-on-1 situation. He drifts into spaces, picks the ball up. Usually he's got like one person to beat, and then the defense isn't set, which I think is those big chances, which I should say we probably missed about 80% of them. But I think that's where it comes from. Is if you watch Newcastle attack, it's just absolute chaos. Like they don't have set positions. They kind of pick the ball up from anywhere. If you look at like our shot charts and things like that and heat maps, it's kind of a bit all over the place. So it's going to be interesting to see what we start the season like. I think in terms of those goals, our strikers combined had 6 between them last season. 6. Which incidentally is actually the same amount as Shelby, which is someone that no one is talking about.
Your talisman.
Is that from? I actually haven't read that.
It is, yeah. He did win.
Shelby comes out top.
Basically, from Tom Canters, who got the assist talisman.
Love that guy. I meant to read it this morning, but I just ran out of time. But yeah, interesting to say that. Like, he hit the crossbar twice against Crew from free kicks as well the other day. He's also one. He's never scored more than 6 in the season, but I think he only got 2 assists last year. His best was 8. That's where he was playing a bit more advanced. I'll be completely honest. I don't really know much about Hendricks and what position he plays in. He always strikes me as someone that's a bit
multifunctional. He's multifunctional. Yeah. He could play right midfield for you. He could play central midfield. To be honest, he's a worker. He's a worker. Yeah. I would describe him as not a good footballer, but to be honest, he's the sort of guy who'll get into the box, get you a few goals a season and that, which perhaps quite a few of your central midfielders don't particularly have that asset, perhaps. But he most commonly played for Burnley on the right-hand side of a flat midfield 4 when Goodmanson had ever had injury problems. So with McNeil bombing on the left, he invariably he'd be tucking inside a lot. So, but I mean, Steve Bruce already said he can play a number of different positions. Yeah. He could probably even play off a front man. He's not an FPL asset at all. No, I wouldn't know his price, mate. Is he 5 million? Is he
5 million?
I wouldn't go near that, mate.
Yeah.
Do you think Almiron can kick on?
I think
4 goals, 2 assists last year, and
I think he has
getting better.
I think he has another level, and I think you can laugh at the MLS all you like, but he did win the MVP of that league. But I think what that shows is, and again, if you look at the way his career progressed while he was out there, it took him a couple of seasons, but he built on it year on year on year, and he got to a point where he felt comfortable with that league and that level, and showed that he was above that. I don't think he's got as many gears to go up as Saint-Maximin, but I do think this season he might even take a couple more seasons for him to really kind of get to a point where he's like an established Premier League player. But he adds a lot to the team, and particularly the way we play in that chaotic attacking style, if you want to call it attacking style that we play. I like him. I think a lot of fans appreciate his work rate.
I like him.
you talk about Saint-Maximin needing to improve his finishing. That boy he's just got no composure. But
yeah,
I think he'll consistently play for 500,000 more. You'll get the minutes out of him. Whereas Saint-Maximin, I think he's the way he plays. He's always susceptible to a couple of niggly muscle injuries a season. Whereas Almiron, I could see him playing most minutes, if not all the minutes. So slight uptick for him, but I think for 500,000 cheaper, I think the consensus is go with Saint-Maximin.
I can't see how anyone would pay that extra 0.5 for Almiron when we're talking about exactly what you said. You've nailed it, mate. I think Almiron can improve. He's a player I often describe as every time he gets the ball, you feel like he can do something, but invariably does nothing. That's always how it feels about him. But he's busy. He's quite a likable player. He works really hard for the team. But I think Saint-Maximin has levels of potential that he could really go beyond. And the sort of numbers that have been branded about in terms of transfer fees of the way people talk about Traore now, I'm not saying it's going to go that way for Saint-Maximin, but I can see the capability of him. He's not as explosive as Traore, but he's a far more skillful player, actually. And I think I've criticised his composure. His composure is actually probably better than Traore, actually. I think he can be such a good player.
Yeah, I think if we're going to just strengthen one position, if we could get someone in that, like, even if we had, I don't know, like Rondon back, I don't know what he's like 2 years on from playing the Premier League, but I would love to have seen them two play together. Just a centre forward that could understand what a wing is going to do and where he's going to put the ball. Because I was more impressed than the trickery from Saint-Maximin towards the end of last season was actually his decision making from an assist potential impressed me. It's just we didn't have the teammates there to put away half those chances.
Play Andy Carroll. What are you worried about? He
scored a cracker yesterday.
I have seen it. He's a great goal.
Yeah. He's 5.5 million is Andy Carroll. Dwight Gale's out. If Joe Linton's not in favour and he's playing up top and he's got Almiron, and I'm not touting Andy Carroll at all, but it's one to keep an eye on. You think he's all right? No.
Well, I mean, you look at the striking options. Again, it kind of comes down to, from an FPL point of view, how are you going to set your team up? Like, I'm kind of flirting, but I don't think anyone's going for 3 strikers unless you're going for like those 3 consistent mid-priced.
Yeah, I'm looking at Werner, Martial,
Me and Sinch both put our hands up.
Yeah, I'm whacking straight in, mate. Werner, Ings, and Martial, all around that 8.5, 9 million, 9.5 million.
So who's that again? I'm actually like, can I tell you who's in my draft right now? And I haven't spent more than 20 minutes on it. I currently have Bobby Firmino in for a 1-game punt to then switch out to Martial.
Yeah, I don't mind that as a thinking. 1 goal in games at Anfield last year. I mean, that's fine, sir.
Yeah.
No. I do see the thinking. If you know you're taking him straight out, then yes, it's fine. Home to Leeds. If that's what you want to do.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't settled on it yet, but I couldn't find a combination that worked with those big midfielders where I'd want 3 strikers. So you look below 6 million. You've got Shea Adams. I think you've shouted before. James is one that's interesting. Beneath that, Andy Carroll, 5.5 million, if he's our only fit striker. And that's the key.
Well, if Mitrovic or Adams prove to be completely shit, for example, we can always go to Andy Carroll, can't we? Is part of the point. We can come down to it. Yeah. And we don't know at the moment if this news on Dwight Gale turns out to be correct, that we think he might have quite a serious injury. So
FPL seems to know James, because I just pulled him up and he's got a red flag already. So he's.
Oh, is he really?
We know what a red flag is. That's it. Game over.
Well, I can tell you what. When we started recording, he didn't have one. Genuinely.
Really? Yeah, he's definitely got one now.
Are we still talking about Andy Carroll?
We're talking about Dwight Gale.
No, don't worry. You know, the Carroll.
His red flag is only around the corner, mate. Trust me. He's the most injury prone of all. I'll be honest with you, Si. I think looking at the list of Newcastle players and the ownership numbers, Saint-Maximin's at 18.5%. Everybody else is at 1.5% or less, and that tells the story of Newcastle assets. It's Saint-Maximin, and really you've got to be a little bit bold to go elsewhere. Maybe Jamal Lascelles if you need to 4.5.
Big taste,
but that's about it.
Interestingly, so before the Dubravka injury, I was looking at the rotations, and Newcastle and Burnley do actually rotate quite nicely for the first 10 games. So everyone's shouting, Charlie Taylor as an option, unless you're going to go with Pope and Dubravka. So I'm still tempted. By that. I just, you look at the goal difference. I think our goal difference was -20 last season. We went down with a -21 goal difference the last time we got relegated from the Premier League. So I honestly think it's on a knife edge as to which way this team's going to go. More expansive, more attacking, more goals, but still a bit shit, or whether the floodgates open and we have a really tough season and end up in that kind of scrap for 17th. I'm just not sure right now. I think the players we've got, they've proven that they can stay in the Premier League and can upset a few and beat expectations. So that's probably how it'll end up going.
I'm leaning more and more towards starting with Charlie Taylor, in spite of the fact they don't have the game week 1 fixture. And if I go down that route, and that means me taking hits to getting United assets in game week 2, for example, then I'm leaning more and more to this idea that Si's just said. A Big Tasty comes back on the radar, because that rotation with Burnley and Newcastle was really, really good up until roundabouts game week 16. West Ham is the other one you might want to have a closer look at, because you're paired in the sense that the two of you both have home games all the way through. You're paired together, so one's at home, one's away. But the pairing with Burnley is better. It's more. I'd rather that as a move to go right. Yeah, Taylor. And then, to be honest, if I'm going 4.5 million Newcastle, I find it really difficult for it not to be Lascelles. And the problem is, if once I put Lascelles in, I want to play him every week, because I know I'm going to miss that goal away from home, and I'm never going to be at the end of it.
If he gets a double-digit haul, I'm taking you to McDonald's. Is that the?
We're still waiting for it. Surely I'm not. I don't think I will. But I haven't. What's happening with, and again at time of recording, potentially with Doherty, is making me think towards an extra 4.5 million midfield at the moment. So yes, I have considered that, as in Taylor and now Lascelles, for example, as a maybe. But I think I probably won't. I'd be really surprised that Manfred don't start with Saint-Maximin now. So I think it's great at 5.5.
Yeah, I agree. So this is a funny story, James. The last thing I looked at last night before I went to bed was a story about Doherty going to Spurs. And then it randomly appeared in my dream last night, no joke. And I woke up thinking it was a dream. He was going to Spurs. And then I looked at Twitter this morning. Doherty.
Oh, right. I was going to say, because I love him as well, mate.
Weird. So I was like, I can't believe it. I can't believe it if that goes through. But yeah, he was always an option. I've seen a few people say that maybe he's not as good an option if he goes to Spurs. I'm not sure about that. I think he'll be brought in to play the same way Ori did.
This is a Newcastle United podcast, and you still have DeAndre Yedlin. You concentrate on yourselves, mate.
He played all right today, actually.
Good. Where do you think you finished, Si?
Well, I think we will finish 14th.
I would have said the same.
I'm pleased to hear that, because I was worried that, to be honest, you were going to say we're going down, mate. I didn't know what I was walking into on this podcast, and I suspected that might be what you say. So I'm pleased to hear you be a little bit more bullish about it than what I think you felt once the takeover fell through on that. I think that you need to improve defensively if you're going to stay with a back four. I think if you revert to a 5, you naturally will, but it will be at the detriment of what happens offensively. And I think the manager, I know you're not keen on him, has done all right, mate. He's done all right.
Yeah,
and I definitely think there are 3 worse teams than you.
Yeah, which going into last season, I think I was a bit blindsided by that, and I was a bit too focused on just Newcastle and not looking at the kind of dross and the shit that was around us. And you look at, 3 teams that come up, I think everyone expects Leeds to do well, probably do like a Wolves, potentially, although to be honest, I haven't seen enough of them to really agree with that sentiment, that they're just going to be automatically a top 10, top 11 side. I think Palace are obviously got issues, so we finished above them last season. I do think that 13th to 14th swap will probably be West Ham. I think your team found something last season. Towards the end of last season, you've got the players. I don't know if you've bought anyone. Souček this season.
Not yet. I mean, we made Souček permanent.
Wilshere's fit.
Than that.
Yeah. Souček looks a good player. I think I think that your fixture run at the start of the season, I think, is why a lot of people are potentially considering Saint-Maximin and going to 0.5 more.
Yeah,
I'm going with both, Si.
I quite like that 5.5 bracket. I've got Armstrong in at the moment. I've got two of them.
I've got two, and I wouldn't surprise me if I had three in Saint-Maximin and Souček and Armstrong. Just because I've got heavy hitters at the back, I'm hoping Doherty doesn't go to Spurs so I can keep him. Because if he goes to Spurs, maybe I won't. But three big strikers that are more than 8.5, 9 million. Three defenders at 7.5, 7 and 6. Can't afford any midfielders. I'm going to have to be shopping at around about 5.5, 6 million.
So who you got in midfield to the two?
De Bruyne. At the moment it's all placeholder stuff, but De Bruyne, Fernandes, and then Souček, Armstrong, and it'd end up with someone else cheap around 5.5 million. Very strong midfield.
Aubameyang, Mane, Armstrong, Saint-Maximin, Souček.
I was going to say, I've been in a situation before where I started the season without the most expensive player in midfield, and it becomes a bit of a nightmare. So if you're not going with one of those 12 million guys and you want to get one of them in, that's all you.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a formation change, right? I'd have to go from a 3-4-3, which is what I'm going to play, to a 3-5-2. And I can always downgrade Doherty because there are cheaper defenders out there. But
yeah,
we're so. I'll be honest with you, I'm so far
Matt Doherty till he's wearing a Tottenham shirt.
It's so far off where we'll be fine on the final kind of deadline day. But I suppose I should have known. But the biggest thing to come out of this was Saint-Maximin. Is he the real deal from an FPL point of view? And from what both of you guys are saying, especially so, you think actually, yeah, maybe he is. And that 18% of people that have got him in from day one are probably onto something.
Yeah, value-wise, I think he scored under 100 points last season. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he puts up 150 if he gets the minutes. Looking at what that equates to, it's 10 goals, 8 assists, around about that. So it's whether you can stay fit. I think even in this current Newcastle team, it showed that he can deliver that. I think for 5.5 million, everyone's looking around for those kind of enablers in midfield. And there's a couple of them floating around that price point, which is another thing as well, is that you've got options, I think, at 5.5 million. You're not just stuck there with him. You can move to a couple of other players. So I think, particularly from the start of the season in our fixtures, it makes sense to take a punt on him.
Yeah, for sure. So thanks for joining us. Always a pleasure to have a chat.
Always.
Your tan is always showing us off, but what can we do about that? You're not in California
I really
anymore,
need
are
to do
you?
something about my lighting.
Nah, I'm in Portugal for
okay.
the moment. Yeah, just
nice.
Yeah, I've had quite a weird COVID 2020. Yeah, not been working since March, but it's kind of pre-planned anyway. So weirdly, I've kind of come out of this without any work, but also been able to spend most of this year in quite hot, nice places.
Lovely.
Fortunately.
Good.
Yeah, fortunately, Newcastle's not really a
hot place.
A hot place in terms of FPL weather or football ambitions at the moment. But oh well.
And for all the listeners that don't follow you, head over to it's FPL Footballer. Is it _Footballer?
There's an underscore in there, yeah, somewhere.
There is a nice _FPL _Footballer where you'll find sites talking about Newcastle, FPL, and anything else. Hot weather, so it appears.
Yeah,
making us all jealous.
And the Lakers as well. I'm a big NBA fan. There's a few of those.
I wondered what the purple and yellow hearts were. That makes sense now.
Yeah, there we go. James, from the Northeast, we are moving on to the Northwest in the next episode of Correspondence Week. We'll be with Turfy Topper and talking about Burnley, and maybe we'll have to bring up this rotation on defenders again with him and see what his thoughts are on that.
Probably say just get too defensive. I know that Jack's going to be big on Taylor, definitely, and I'd be interested. He is not ruling out Pope as a good choice at the start as well, and obviously interesting Chris Wood and a few others. Jay Rodriguez he likes as well. There's a few decent assets to discuss at Burnley, and you can trust them.
Exactly. And to all the listeners that are tuning in to Correspondence Week, if you've enjoyed this episode, there's at least 11 or 12 that have been released before this, and we've got another 7 or 8 to go. So wherever you listen to the podcast, make sure you're subscribed or hitting the notification bell so you get alerted as soon as they go live. And most importantly, as always, stay safe. Ciao for now.
Thanks, Si. Cue music, please, man, child.